Let me ask you, what do you think of me? Like, really, what do you think of me? I mean, here I am on this channel and I share a few posts every once in a while about my process, but what do you really think about me? And what I mean by this is not what you think, but how do you compare yourself to me? What are the features that really jump out to you about me that you're comparing to yourself? Maybe you're like looking at Maddie and you say, oh, Maddie has beautiful long hair. Or maybe you're saying, wow, Maddie has really big, broad shoulders. I wish I had those big, broad shoulders. Who knows? Maybe. But at some level, you're comparing something that you have and some attribute about yourself to some attribute that I have about me. And I think that's really interesting because what's the point? I mean, at the end of the day, is there such thing as a good comparison? Or is it all a bad comparison? I mean, think about all the comparing you do on a daily life. It doesn't just have to be me. It can be your friends, your colleagues, your family members, the people that you don't even know, that you just know their digital lives, and you're comparing yourselves to them. I know for me at least, I certainly do. And that's why I'm posting about this, is because I find myself scrolling through these images of other people and they're amazing. And what am I doing in that process? So I think there are two things that we can unpack here. First is we can identify unhealthy comparisons, which was what I was doing, and then identify healthy comparisons. So let's talk about the unhealthy comparison. So from an unhealthy perspective, why are we saying that a comparison is unhealthy? Well, ultimately it comes down to a belief that I have about myself. And I'm looking to validate that because that is onto my own self-image. And I hold on to that individual belief in my head. And when I look at this picture, I'm making a comparison. So if, let's say, I'm scrolling through and I see, let's say beauty is one example, and I see this beautiful woman and I say, oh, wow, I wish I had that. I'm confirming a belief inside of me that I'm not beautiful, right? And that's unhealthy because then I sit there and I reminisce on the things that I maybe need to change. Maybe my face is asymmetrical. Maybe my shoulders are big. Whatever it might be, I'm doing that comparison of the identity that I already have and that I already hold. So I think and I'm gonna spitball live here, is like, I think there's an opportunity for me to think through what are those dimensions that I'm holding my identity on and I'm finding comparison. Is it success in people's careers? Is that something that I'm comparing myself to? And it can be both ways, right? It can be up and down. Am I doing a comparison to feel good about myself? Am I saying that this person is really a nice person and I'm also a nice person? So that's a nice point of comparison. I validated that I'm a nice human. And yeah, so I think that's really the interesting thing, is that kind of negative of, oh, we're just trying to revalidate some belief. And I think the second part, which is maybe a little bit harder to get our heads around, is reconstructing those identities based on those maybe self-limiting beliefs that we can hold dearly, that we're using to drive comparison, and reconstructing those based on observations and facts, and really trying to assess ourselves internally to say, oh, yes, that is something that I could be doing better. Yes, I could be eating healthier. Yes, I could be more deliberate about emails. Something along these lines, and you have an objective measure of comparison, that can be a healthy stance, because all of a sudden I'm comparing the opportunity for self-growth as opposed to validating some story. So I know there's the concepts kind of merge a little bit, but if you can separate the two, I think that will be helpful. It'll be helpful for me as well to understand and learn and think through, when am I comparing for the betterment of myself and my own journey and my own individual being, right? That's something we talk about a lot on this channel, which is you showing up as you are, you being you, and really there's only one you. And I think that that's where this concept of comparison comes in, especially when we talk about others and not talking about comparison of self, is that we lose sense of our beingness, right? And when we lose sense of our beingness, we're lost in trying to prove other things, prove this identity. Another great example on this left-hand column of things that are comparisons that are identities. For example, for me, on this channel, I talk about how hard for me dating has been. Well, that's an identity and a story that I'm creating and I'm holding on to, and I'm comparing myself to other people. I look at, for example, one of my really good friends back in college, and I compare myself to them. And is that fair? No, they're different beings than I am. Is that healthy? No, it's not healthy for myself. So I think maybe the key takeaway here today is try to be observant about yourself and your blooper reel, because we see everything, right? I see when I wake up, I see when I drop the toothbrush on the floor. Yes, it happens, right? You see those, but when you look at these other people's lives, you're seeing their best image of their life, their best identity. So it becomes this unrealistic state, and many people I'm sure have talked about it, but I think it's really important to highlight within our community, because there's this desire for this perfect transition. At least maybe there's this identity that I'm holding on to of this perfect transition, and that's unrealistic. I don't want that, right? And I think the more I can resonate, and the more I can resonate with me being me as it's defined, and not by any other definition, not what the trans says is you're clockable or you're passable. Like, who cares? At the end of the day, I think it's about this second category of you finding what makes sense for you and focusing on your story, your path, your journey, and the people that are around you and the communities that are around you that support you through that, but moving forward as that individual. So I think that's all I wanted to talk. This was kind of a spontaneous video. I have this new studio set up in New York City, so it's a work week night, and I'm getting ready to go to the gym after this. And it's really nice to be able to just record a kind of something that I'm feeling and share it with our community. So as always, leave your thoughts in the message board, and if you have any suggestions of things that have really worked for you, whether that's you maybe stepping away from social media. This is the first time I'm talking about it, right? Like, this is live, so maybe that's something that I that would be a healthy step for me to rebalance and recenter on myself. So that's all. Hope it was helpful.